Okay, welcome everybody to tasting number 178 of the
Wow.
Saratoga Whiskey Club.
Woohoo.
We just had 177 last night, so um, we're doing a back to back. I'm really excited about tonight, though. I think it's gonna be just as good, if not better, than last night. So pretty excited about this. But we have a special guest with us tonight from Chicago. That's right, Jay, right? Chicago.
I'm in DC actually.
Oh, shoot. Is it your partners in Chicago?
Yeah, we
Oh,
started
okay.
in
All right.
Chicago.
Well, Jay, we have a special guest, Jay from DC, joining us tonight. He's the co-owner of the Whiskey Lab imports and distribution here in the United States. We got wind of them by some of the bottlings that they're bringing in. And Jay reached out to Holly, and we had a conversation back in January, I believe, about how we can get some of these bottlings into New York. And so we're excited to have you tonight to taste through six different expressions from the first releases. We are literally some of the first people in the US to be tasting some of these bottlings, which is really exciting. Always fun to try things early on. But Jay, why don't you kind of give us a little background of yourself and the
Sure.
company and what it is exactly that you do, and maybe how you even got into Scotch or independent bottling in terms of importing. Uh,
Sure.
why don't you give us the scoop?
Yeah, I'm Jay Roberts, and my journey into Scotch actually started in Saratoga Springs. I'll come back to that though. So, First Hill Spirits, Holly and Charles, they're the first retail shop in the United States to ever make a purchase with the Whiskey Lab. Um, and what we do with the Whiskey Lab is we focused on brands that are too small or only have a few releases a year that for other importers to work with. That's kind of the big picture what the Whiskey Lab does. They're searching for the independent bottlers of Scotch that do almost predominantly single cask strength releases, similar to some of the other brands you may have heard of, Scotch Malt Whiskey Society. But for the small guys and the small groups, that's one or two people that run these brands and operate them, where every release they do, it's their name on the line. So every release they do has to be good. So that's kind of the basis of products that we search for in the Whiskey Lab. And it's been quite a learning experience. The three-tier system, operating the timelines of Scotland and learning that process. But background on me, my entry into the Whiskey Lab about 2 years ago was my entry into the alcohol and food and beverage industry. I was a scientist and then became a submariner. So I was stationed in Saratoga Springs for a number of years, a long time ago. And that is where I actually had my first Scotch neat, and that was a Lafroig 10 year. I absolutely hated it, but I didn't want to stop drinking it.
Do you
So I kept
remember
taking.
where that was?
It was a buddy of mine. We got off like third shift, and he just popped a bottle, and so I took a sip. I didn't like it, but I kept drinking it, and I wanted to figure out what it was, and that's where I learned the depth of flavor that a single malt can have. So single malts are a true passion of mine, but it's not the only thing we do. So started Scotch 15 years ago in Saratoga Springs. That was my first real Scotch neat. Then over the years, traveling with the military around the world, tried a whole bunch of different spirits. And I kept coming back to Scotch. I kept coming back to single malts. But starting in 2020, I went back to school during COVID because I just had some free time, and there was an unofficial whiskey club in Chicago at the University of Chicago. We started meeting and doing Zoom calls, and then we started trying all different whiskeys and splitting them up into little jars and sending them out to each other. And after 2 years, we found independent bottlers, and we had a bottle of a 32-year-old Gurvan, and we were comparing that with Pappy Van Winkle 23-year. And almost everyone in my group liked the 32-year-old Gurvan, a $200 bottle or so, more so than the $4,000 bottle of Pappy Van Winkle. And so that's what really got me interested into independent bottlers, where you can find exceptional spirits at a fraction of the price of some of the big brands. And then when it comes to the small brands like Ferg and Harris or Unchartered Whiskey Company and then my brand Whispering Waters, our reputation is on the line for every release we do. We've only done four Whispering Waters, Jack and Donna at Uncharted. They do about 10 a year. Ferg Harris has done 15 releases over the past 2 years. So that's really predominantly what we focus on, the small brands, and we're continuing adding to our portfolio to bring it over so people like you can try out new single cask releases.
Great. Did you ever go to Nine Maple while you were here? Just curious. Do you remember that bar?
I've been to every single bar on the street. Uh, we drank a lot when we got off shift while we were training there. So I don't
It's
know
a
that I
good
could name a single.
Scotch bar. It's they've got, they've been around for 30 plus years. So
I guarantee I've been there.
yeah, you were probably there. That's good. Oh, that's great. Yeah, we're we as you know are super focused on IBs, independent bottlings here in the shop. It's really the best way to try, especially distilleries that aren't normally bottled,
Yeah.
but then also unusual expressions from distilleries that do release different things. So it's just a great way to just continue that exploration of Scotch. So these first couple of bottles that we're having, these are barrels that you purchased yourself and bottled yourself, or how does that work?
Yeah, Whispering Waters is my brand. And if you were to look at the bottle, the logo, Submarine Service is known as the silent service. So Whispering Waters is a nod to them. And then there's mermaids, one looking forward, one looking backwards. And in Scottish folklore, mermaids are the only actual story of mermaids where they're good. Every other culture, mermaids are evil. The sirens of Greece, they were all evil, killed all the sailors. But in Scottish folklore, uh, it was the dream to marry a mermaid. A sailor's dream was to marry a mermaid. So Whispering Waters is really a shout out to my roots, how I came up and discovered spirits, which was after serving in the submarine service, or discovered Scotch. And what we do is look at things that I haven't seen on the shelf anywhere else. So the first one we did was a Gurvan, but we have two here. You don't see Braeval, you don't see Teaninich on the shelf often in America. But what we did is we bought four casks over time, and then we decided to bottle them in a certain sequence. And we have one more that's being bottled next week, actually.
When you bought these casks to begin with, did you have a thought of doing like IBs, or were they bought for personal reasons?
There, yeah, it wasn't initially IBs.
Okay.
When I had my first son, I wanted to buy a new make cask of scotch, and then not when he turns 21 because he'd be too stupid to enjoy it, but when he turns 30, I wanted to gift him a 30-year-old scotch, and so that's we did that. But that's when I met a lot of people. I met Jack at Uncharted, the owners of Ferg Harris and Young Spirits, and I started researching the industry. And going back to that first bottle we had as a group, the 32-year-old Gurvan, we bought a 24-year-old cask of Gurvan and sat on it a few years. And that's when I started learning the process. What does it actually take to bottle a cask? What does it actually take to get it to the United States? How can I actually enjoy it? And that's what led to the creation of the WhiskeyLab. It was that cask that I bought where I want to bottle it. I want to get to the United States. How could I do that? And there was no business. I don't know of any other business that, sure, just we'll get it over there for you. And I've done that for some clients already, but that's what started the WhiskeyLab.
Okay. Makes sense. All right. So we're going to start out with the Braeval. Not one you see too often. I think this is the first Braeval we've actually had in the shop. So this is kind of unique in its own way.
Yeah.
Speyside Distillery.
It's the highest distillery in Scotland, elevation wise. And Braeval's had four official release in their 50-year history. Outside of that, it's used almost exclusively for blends. And um, I think this is my favorite that I've done. So I'm glad we're starting with my favorite.
So it used to always be thought that Dalwhinnie was the highest in elevation in Scotland. Is Braeval? I might be saying it wrong. Braeval's higher than Dalwhinnie, or
Yeah, according to Wikipedia and ScotchWhiskey.com, the elevation is higher than Dalwhinnie.
okay.
Is it like 1 meter?
It, they may have added a brick or
So this one is matured in first fill PX sherry casks.
this is matured in first fill PX sherry cask. So it's a sherry bomb, and I call it 9.97 years on my website. It's a 9 year. We bottled it 2 weeks before it turned 10 years old. So it was bottled on October 14th, but 10 years prior, it was distilled on October 28th. And we did that to get it in time for Whiskey Fest Chicago. If we
Mm.
waited 2 weeks, we would not have had the supply to show up in November last year.
And this one is 60.2% ABV. So um, pretty high up there in alcohol. 305 bottles.
Yeah, it was a pretty full cask. I expected it to be around 260. And when I bought the cask, it was 63% alcohol. Moving from warehouse to the bottling line and then regaging, we found that it had dropped. And even in the bottling line, it moved from 61 down to 60%.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah.
Tons of PX on the nose, but not in an overly sweet way, more in like a savory, um, kind of earthy chocolate raisin way.
Yeah, I get dark fruits on the nose and dark chocolate right as it touches my tongue, and a little more the dried fruits on the palate.
I actually haven't had a chance to try these, Jay. So I'm trying them for the first. That's terrible because I know you were nice to send samples. Just with Japan, I didn't have a chance. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna save them to taste with everyone else. So this is
Awesome.
will be
Getting a
my
lot.
taste. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, you two have been very busy. Very busy. So
Anybody?
you're
Raisinets. All right. Anybody have any tasting notes or thoughts on this one? You can use the chat room too. Not a problem. Butter toffee nose for Vinny. I mean, would you consider this a sherry bomb? I mean, with the PX, it's not your typical kind of
I'm going
Oloroso
to get knocked off again.
sherry bomb.
I think the
Yeah.
stereotype is Oloroso is
Right.
what you consider with a sherry bomb. With PX, I find it to be much sweeter. So to me, this is a sherry bomb. But I see PX and Oloroso as different.
Hi.
Oh,
I muted. It's all good.
all good.
Yeah, I mean, this is more of a dessert, kind of dram. That PX gives it that dessert quality. Really, really solid though.
I think it drinks a little bit less than its actual alcohol percentage. So
Yeah, I'm gonna
I
grab
think it's
a
Yeah.
drop.
It's not that hot on the palate, and it's actually
yeah.
my first whiskey today. Um, it's it's very dense, obviously from the PX, but it's pretty I would say it's 53% ABV.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, drinks a little lighter. I've had a few people say this is what they like to enjoy a cigar with. So they consider it like a cigar malt. It's just so rich in that aspect.
Hey Holly, just for I know we have so
Yeah.
many people online. Could you maybe just explain the three kind of PX or three sherry that we see more often, just the differences maybe?
Yeah, because what are we gonna see tonight? Another PX with Ferg and Harris, another Pedro
Correct.
Jimenez. Are we gonna, what's Thunderstruck? Is that PX or Oloroso, Jay?
That's Oloroso, as
Okay.
is the Teaninich. But there's
Okay.
different maturations and finish lengths of these.
Okay. Yeah, so for sherry, and I know Jay, you can explain it too, with fortified wines, typically in Scotch whiskey, we actually drink a lot of sherry finishes, but a lot of us have never drank sherry. It's really cheap, some really good bottles, so it's definitely worth grabbing even cream sherry or cooking sherry, but there's lots of different styles, and kind of the rule of thumb in whiskey is if they just say sherry maturation or sherry finish and don't specify the type of sherry, we just assume that it's Oloroso. That's kind of middle of the road makes it sound boring or dull, but it's not. It's the kind of middle of the road from a flavor standpoint in whiskey. And finishing, it's a lot of that dried fruit, baking spice. So if you are, they've kind of changed their maturation, but if you are a Macallan fan or Glendronach, those are Glenfarclas. Those are your that kind of clove, cinnamon, but with some of that dried fruit. And that's in the middle of the sherry spectrum. And then you have on one far end, you have Fino sherry, which is more of a dry, acidic kind of tart style of fortified wine or wine that has had neutral grain spirit added to it. And then you have Pedro Jimenez, which is the sweetest style, which is what we're drinking now, which is that heavy, dense kind of mocha chocolate raisin. So Oloroso sits in the middle and kind of gives you a dash of all of that fruit and spice. And then Pedro Jimenez is that sweet, thick. You can see it in the bottle too. It's a very thick kind of true dessert sherry. And then there's Amontillado, Manzanilla. There's lots of different styles of sherry, Palo Cortado, that aren't as popular. But you'll usually pay more if it's one of those less common sherries. So they'll say it on it. They'll say Palo Cortado or but Pedro Jimenez has become really popular because of how dense it is. It really gives a lot of richness to the whiskey. So it's nice to see that. And it gives it a really, really dark color, which we all know that color doesn't equal flavor in whiskey, but it's nice to look at a lot of times too with the Pedro Jimenez.
And people love sweet. So,
Yeah.
PX is a very popular Scotch in general. When you see PX, or sometimes Madeira, even though that's not sherry, but it has that same kind of sweetness. You kind of gravitate towards. Yeah, this is a really nice whiskey. Yeah, we are starting strong, but again, it's not palate blowing. Let's put it that way. I think it does play less than the 60.2 ABV that it is. I added some water to it just to see what that did. Definitely changed it quite a bit. Actually brought out some more spice a little bit for me. Maybe muted some of that sweetness, but it's really good.
Yeah, I'd say it's hit or miss depending on your palate with adding water. I've had some people enjoy it more without the water, some people with the water. But a few drops goes a long way, especially being a younger.
I think I like it without the water personally.
Yeah.
Still pleasant, but I think it does hold up better at 60.2 than whatever it was I made it. So.
Yeah, and being the first one PX and the last one is PX, there is a considerable difference when you're maturing the entire time in a cask versus being finished.
Right.
And often I found that when it's finished, there's a little bit more on the palate or the tongue from the whether it's PX or Oloroso than if it was matured the full time, where the oak could overtake some of that sherry impact.
This actually does remind me, I mean, you said it too, so now it's in my head, but of the Delmore cigar malt. I mean,
Yeah.
much richer because of the ABV and not being chill filtered, but it has that like chocolate cookie quality to it on the palate, like a cookied chocolate.
Yeah, it's very rich, and quite a difference, I think, if we move to the Teaninich overall. Different distillery, of course, but Oloroso versus PX and then a maturation versus a finished cask definitely makes a different impact overall.
Did you taste any Braeval? Well, maybe you tasted this before the finish, but what's its characteristic as just a distillate? Like, is it a pretty fruity style or
I haven't had it.
grassy?
I haven't
Okay.
I haven't had it, but Uncharted has a couple releases coming out. And so on my next import, they have the sister cask that has been matured in first fill Oloroso. And then this fall, he has another cask coming out where it's been matured in just ex-bourbon the whole time.
Mm.
And so it'll be a good lineup to compare the impact of different casks overall. But I've never had a non-sherry Braeval myself.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and just for people who didn't know much about Braeval, which includes myself, they're not an old distillery. 1973, it was called the Braes of Glenlivet when they opened, but they had to change the name to avoid confusion with obviously Glenlivet. Um, they're owned by Chivas, Pernod Ricard. They were created primarily for blending purposes. And it wasn't until 2017 that the first single malt was released. So um, not a distillery that you see too often in the whiskey world. So pretty cool that we get to try it tonight.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the Teaninich. We're fans of Teaninich here in the shop, that's for sure. Don't get a lot of it, but when we do, we're excited about it.
Yeah. This one, when I heard what it was, the cask, I got really excited because this is a Oloroso cask. It was a barrique, but it was from a bodega in Spain. So it wasn't built and made just for the Scotch industry. It was actually used in some premium high-end Oloroso from a bodega in Spain. Later, they'll find out that doesn't always make it better for the Scotch, but it is different than you're just going to find from a Scottish cooper who pulled a cask just to age, put sherry in just for Scotch. So when I saw that, I had to pick up this cask and taste the liquid, and I absolutely loved it. Definitely a little bit lighter in color. This was finished for 18 months in this first fill Oloroso cask.
And some of the Teaninichs that we've had, I know like Vinny, you've been on the classes, but from some other bottlers, it can be a really bright whiskey, like very floral, kind of citrusy, like very bright and bouncy on the palate, which is kind of fun to see how that transitions over into sherry.
I had a sommelier tell me.
Yeah, I'm getting all of that, the citrus and the floral notes. That's the first thing that I picked up.
So you said
Trying to
18
finish to
months,
be.
18 months in Oloroso?
That's right, 18
Okay.
months. Yeah. To me, this has a much longer finish than the Braeval overall, but it's a bit lighter on the tongue.
Ooh, that's really nice.
Love the nose. And Barrique, I forget the volume, but it's typically in an Oloroso sherry butt, it would be a huge
Yeah.
cask. So this is more contact with the cask and with the oak.
Yeah. This is 225 liters was this cask.
Okay.
Or capacity, vice 550 to 600 for a sherry butt.
So like a hogshead almost. Hogshead's 250, right? And so
Yeah.
right in between a bourbon barrel or a standard American barrel and a hogshead.
That's right.
You know, when you go to a summer picnic, maybe my family only did this, and the fruit's going to be out for a long time, so they put like a little bit of, I don't know if it was seltzer or like Sprite on the fruit to kind of like hold it, and then your fruit is kind of tastes like soda. I don't know. Maybe that only is in Rochester.
That's a Rochester thing, yeah.
Yeah. Just like white hot dogs and garbage plates.
Garbage plate right next to your
Oh.
apples with your seltzer. Yeah.
It's
That
got
is
like fruit soaked in Sprite.
Yeah. I get it. Like fresh fruit on the nose and then the palate, like a dark, rich fruit.
But there is this kind of effervescent quality to this, it's like a little bit of a bubbly note there too. It kind of tingles. I kind of see what you're saying, Holly. I think it maybe sat in the sun a little too long, that you would eat it at that point, but it's the flavors there. So
What were you saying, Jay, about Assam said something to you about maybe
Oh, yeah. They prefer Teaninich in ex-bourbon because they exactly what you said. It's fresh, floral, fruity, and very light on the tongue. And so that's all I had until I tasted this cask, the just ex-bourbon. Never had anything cask strength, anything higher than low 40s. But I really enjoyed this, thought it was something different. And this was our second cask. So we went from a single grain Gavon to this, and I thought it was just a great comparison of two sides of the flavor spectrum from a Oloroso finish to a single grain.
Was a single grain finished or was it a full maturation?
Full maturation.
Okay.
And
So,
Jack did the sister cask 1 year later, similar to the Braeval in a port finish. So we got
oh,
that coming.
interesting. Um, since this was your second iteration, what, how did you decide to pick up Oloroso Barrique? Like, I mean, obviously you're taking a gamble in a way, if you already like the spirit in an ex-bourbon hogshead, how do you go through that process? I mean, you did that, right? It was already your barrel before
Yeah.
finishing. So was that like suggested to you, or was that
Oh,
something you guys kind of came up with, or how does that work?
let me be explicitly clear. I did not pick the barrel. I found it in the barrel. And I had IL or around Distillery's Bodega, ex Bodega, and I really enjoyed that compared to their standard release. And I researched ex Bodega casks
Okay.
and what that would mean. Vice having low quality sherry just to saturate the oak versus premium sherry
Yep.
and an ex Bodega cask have an influence on Scotch. So I really liked that story, and then I really enjoyed the liquid. And so I bought the cask and sat on it for a little while and let it age a bit more.
Okay. Interesting. I was curious, how people go and work kind of through that process of finishing, especially. It's one thing fully maturing in something and just waiting until you think it's the right time to bottle. But I mean, you kind of do take a gamble when you finish anything. So
Yeah,
um, I think this worked out really well, though.
yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I saw a comment, it drinks at higher ABV than the Breval. I agree. I think this is a little bit of a punch on the tongue, but I tend to let this sit out for at least 10 minutes before I take a sip of this. So while I'm cooking dinner with my wife, I may let this sit on the side and enjoy it with dinner.
it's a right intermingling of sherry, though. I think it's most people know in the club now that I prefer ex-bourbon matured. So
Yeah.
I don't shy away from it. I like it, but what I tend to drink is bourbon because I like the brightness of it. And I'm glad that the Teaninich is still showing its true colors, even through 18 months in the sherry.
It's
You
definitely got
hardly
that
get
fruit.
Holly to say that ever. So congratulations, Jay.
Oh man, I'm honored. I'm honored.
18 months is a long time. That was risky, Jay. I would have given it 18 days in
Yeah,
sherry.
that's short. That's short.
It
Yeah,
touched Sherry.
Yeah, maybe that'll be my bottling line. 2 day finishes.
That
it's
sounds
funny.
that sounds gimmicky though.
Like
I,
oak chips.
virgin oak impact on Scotch. You depending on what it is, you have to monitor that
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
diligently.
Oh no,
We
all my releases would be in fifth fill
fifth.
hogsheads.
Wow,
Just release
wow.
new make.
No one would buy it but me.
You like the pure distillate flavor.
No, I do like sherry. I just maybe it's me wanting a deal too. Usually you can find hogsheads for a little bit cheaper than a
Uh,
sherry finish too.
Not a little bit, much less expensive. A sherry cask, a first fill sherry cask itself, a high quality one is £1,000 just for the cask. And and then you got the distillate and everything else that goes with it. Vice, an ex-bourbon first fill cask is 200 to 300 pounds for a good one.
And we can move on to the next one too. You talked a little bit about it, but I don't know if you want to share some, I don't know. I think it's part of the sparkle of the industry, but maybe how challenging it's been to be an importer and,
Oh man.
and get it into different states. And that's, part of the love-hate of our industry. I know we had many phone calls trying to make sure we could get all of these bottles into our state and our beautiful state of New York and be able to get them on shelves. But, that's part of I guess it's a testament to your love for independent bottlers too.
Yeah, it's dual-sided for the brands in Scotland that want to come to America. There's the three-tier system, which is just a gargantuan monster to try to deal with from their perspective. Vice, if you're a brand in Scotland, you can sell out of the back of your car to an individual or to a retailer or to a distributor. But in America, the three-tier system, it's not a cakewalk. And so I've had a number of brands just reach out for advice on how to navigate the three-tier system, who should they should be working with. And that's how I think I have 12 more brands in the pipeline that want to come in through the Whiskey Lab over the next year. They're learning, they got to build up. It takes 6 to 8 months to get through the process and get ready to change your labels, get your new bottles ready, work on pricing, and accept the differences between America. But once it's over here, you have it in a warehouse. New York State is the number one um, consumer retailer sales of spirits. It's the biggest market. It's bigger than California when it comes
Bigger
to
than
Scotch.
Texas?
Yeah, when it comes to Scotch.
Okay.
Yeah, I should say the tri-state area.
Okay.
It's roughly. I don't want to say numbers because I could be wrong, but I know it's the tri-state area is number one. California is number two, and then depending on Texas or Florida, it goes back and forth. Chicago and Illinois is up there too, but the tri-state area is just massive. But it's also the most difficult as far as the bureaucracy goes of getting products on shelves. It takes 6 weeks just to get a price listed. And then you can't get any product into New York until you have prices listed if you want to sell to a distributor or a retailer. So Holly and I started talking in January, and it took until maybe the end of March to actually get product to you guys. Is that
Yeah.
correct? The first shipment? Yeah, so it's quite a 10-week sprint of going back and forth and working through the logistics there. It's also been a learning process for me. If it was an expert company that had been doing this for a while, it may have been faster, but I learned quite a bit along the way. So now I have a pipeline established that makes it much easier. And from that 10 weeks, now it's 6 weeks to get products to New York.
And
Vice.
did some variants to, so Boston, who's right next door, or Boston, Massachusetts, who's right next door to us, so price posting, you have to tell New York State, the liquor authority, what, if a new product's coming in, what the label is and what it's going to cost. And then you have to wait those weeks that Jay had said. In Massachusetts, I think it takes 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
So price posting. So every state has its own little quirks and rules and pros and cons and yeah, good old. So just across the border, you takes a couple days to price.
Yeah. It's very interesting. California is 4 days. Florida, you have to pay, I think I think it's $15 for any product you want to list. You don't have to price post. New Jersey is a good 8 weeks to get through their pipeline. It's all different. Every state's different, but from a global perspective, when you're looking at the business operations for a small Scotch brand, every state is almost like a new country to them from the population and the economic power behind that.
Yeah,
So
right.
selling to Germany, selling to France, that's like selling to New York and selling to New Jersey or selling to Massachusetts and California.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to the Carragh. This is one that most people have never heard of. Well, all of these, nobody's ever really heard of before. Yeah, tell us a little bit about this IB. This is kind of a newer one to the scene for a lot of people.
Sure, Carragh is I said try Carragh forever, and then they called me Jay.
All right, there you
It's
go.
tree like a tree you see, and Carragh, just Carragh. And
Okay.
that's Scott's Gallic for three pillars. The three pillars, what makes whiskey? Grain, water, and yeast, and that's the three pillars of creating Scotch overall.
They're the
So
pillar.
Tree Carragh's an interesting brand. It's a husband and wife. Uh, Again, the husband was a physicist, and he got into the Scotch industry, so we had a little bond there. But they've been doing about 12 releases a year, and almost all of their releases have won awards. They're just doing exceptional work. And they reached out to me on LinkedIn, asked if I would chat. And I said, of course, let's have a call. I looked at their supply, and I didn't have anything finished in a port cask or matured in port. And you don't see Glen Elgin often on shelves. It's just a brand or a distillery you don't often see. And so I said, I want to try it. I loved it. When I think of this or I taste this, I think of like a sweet, sophisticated French dessert. So I really enjoy this, and I don't often have port finished Scotch that I find exceptional. I do find this exceptional, and I liked it so much that I bought or I imported two of their other releases, and now along with Uncharted, I trust them and I believe in them. So anything Uncharted does, I'm bringing over to the USA even before I taste it. Anything that Tree Carragh does, I trust them. Everything they do wins awards. I'm bringing it over to the USA. So this was my first experience, and this was just in December of this past year. So it came over with two other options, and I thoroughly enjoy this.
So this is ex-Tawny port finish. How long was the finish on this?
This was about 1 year. I think it was 11
Year
months on
finish.
this
Okay,
one.
so this is a 12-year Scotch. This is 55.5% from Glen Elgin, Speyside, 292 bottles.
That's right. This is considerably different than a Oloroso or PX finish kind of spirit. Again, different distillery, but it's I don't find this to be exceptionally sweet like the PX or overly fruity like an Oloroso finish from the Teaninich.
I would have
I
thought
have a
this was
hard time.
ruby port.
Say again?
I would have thought this was ruby port. It's like a brighter fruit. Usually, I really like it.
Yeah, this is what I like to have after dinner. I think this is great. And this is what most people have enjoyed from the three releases we bought over. So much so that I think there's only three bottles left. Whatever you guys have at the shop, First Fill Spirits, there's nothing left for to get any retailer.
Because Glen Elgin, I think Glen Elgin's a worm tub distillery, right? 98% sure. But so it's a little bit of a heavier distillate, but this one's quite different. I wouldn't call it heavy. Yeah, some people said spice as well. But there's a lot going on. I think
Yeah,
it's nice addition, but I would not know it's tawny.
yeah. This is every time I drink it, I'm finding something new, and it's hard for
Mhm.
me to put words on it and say something consistent. I just thoroughly enjoy this.
And you're right, Holly. It is Worm Tub Distillery.
They actually recommend adding water to this. Ryan and Ola, the owners of Tree Crop, just a drop or two. They say it opens up a little bit, gets a little more of that fruity aspect. I like it neat without any water, but this is one that I would say test it out. The brand owners, the creator said add a drop of water and it makes it open up a little bit.
So Glen Elgin and Teaninich are workhorses for Johnny Walker.
Yeah.
So it's nice to taste them outside of their main job. Where are they based? Tree Carragh.
They're in Edinburgh. They're in
Oh,
Edinburgh.
okay.
Yeah. And some of the bigger independent bottlers, they have their own established pipelines. And again, that's why I created the Whiskey Lab to seek the brands that don't have a pipeline. But the majority of the small indie bottlers don't submit bottles to go get rated or the award ceremonies or anything like that. Uncharted doesn't do that. Ryan and Ola submit everything they do to 2 to 3 different award um, ceremonies or reviewing agencies, and I can understand why they do that. It's everyone says it's great. They get awards from different places all the time, and it definitely helps a brand with advertising. So they started 2 years ago, and this is their fourth batch release. They do 3 or 4 at a time. They're on their sixth now, and they're in very high demand. Everything they do sells out pretty quickly.
There's some tasty notes. I guess everyone's getting tawny but me. Chocolate, dark chocolate, citrus, spice. Yeah, a lot of chocolate and citrus, oranges dipped in dark chocolate. Um, yeah, I mean that definitely leans more towards the tawny, which tawny versus ruby port. I'm really dumbing this down, but I need to drink more port. I've had more sherry and Madeira than port, but ruby is a brighter fruit, where the tawny is oxidized. So it's more of, and it's darker too, kind of like a Pedro Jimenez. It's a rich, thick style of port.
Yeah, you usually get age statements with the tawny ports, so that's where you see the 10 plus years old or
And
ruby. They don't always put an age statement. I personally, I almost always prefer sherry cask finishes, and Oloroso is usually my go-to. Um, and port finishes, I don't think they have the same impact as Oloroso or PX, but this I found to be phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a
And
great
then
balance.
Holly, you like drinking sherry. I don't, but I love drinking port. So I find it kind of funny. You like drinking sherry, but you don't prefer Scotch finished in a sherry cask. I like drinking port. I don't prefer Scotch finished in a port cask, but I do love this one here.
do you like bourbon?
I can enjoy bourbon, but I'm a Scotch guy through and through.
I was gonna say, so do you like bourbon matured scotch
Yeah, I like Isla's
in
matured.
bourbon?
Yeah,
I really like this one.
Yeah, it's really good.
And port doesn't make me nervous, but yeah, I want to taste it. A port finished whiskey.
yeah.
Because they can get funky. Like some of the
It can
ruby ones,
it
they
can be
can get
weird.
a little grassy funk.
It's something I want to taste at a bar before I bought a bottle usually. But with indie bottlers, I had a Dalmore 7 year port cask finish, and I thought it was phenomenal. Well, one of the best whiskeys I've had. I generally don't like a port finish big brand release, but every indie bottler that I've had a port finish on, I found it to be very good.
What is everyone liking, the port or sherry? We've actually had three different, which is kind of nice. The PX.
I think
Braeval.
I think I'm leaning a little towards the Teaninich of all of the three so far. I mean, I love this port one too, and the Braeval is great for more desserty, but I don't know that Oloroso finish on that Teaninich for me just kind of hit it on the head. This one is also really good for port. I'm not a huge port fan as well, unless it's with a peated malt. Typically, I do love how the port balances with smoke, but yeah, no, this one works really well also. But I think I'm just slightly leaning towards the Oloroso at this point, which is not normal for me. I would probably lean PX versus Oloroso. So you're really making it hard on us tonight.
We're covering so much ground in these first three. They're very
Yeah,
intense flavors overall,
yeah.
balanced but and easy to drink, I think. But
Need to
Chuck,
clean the palate, with all of these,
yeah,
because they can get lost in translation next to each other a little bit.
Yeah,
absolutely,
seems
absolutely.
like everyone's enjoying the PX. Well, all of them, but PX has been the Braeval's been the favorite. I'm going with Glen Elgin.
Yeah,
Bar.
it depends on the night for me, but
Yeah.
I like all three. The PX, depending on the location of an event that I'm doing,
Mm.
it's usually the Braeval is what everyone goes to, or I believe you have it in the shop. It's not part of the tasting. That Uncharted Thunderstruck.
Mhm.
Almost every event we did that.
Oh, that's part of the
Uncharted.
tasting.
Yeah, we've got it in here. So it'll be a nice
Oh,
comparison to the Braeval.
it's right in front of me. It's right in front of me. So yeah,
All right. Speaking of that, Uncharted was really the only IB that you carried that we knew of, kind
yeah,
of going into our discussions with you. We were where were we, Holly? Where we ran into them? It was at the IB festival at the Spirit of Speyside.
Well, at the Speyside whiskey shop and at the Carragh Inn, they do a lot with Uncharted. So we kept tasting all their single casks that they were buying from them because they've done a
yeah,
couple single casks, and the bottle is so cool. So it just kind of it's one that you remember too.
yeah. It's Jack and Donna that run Uncharted. They're wonderful people, and this is Italian glass what they use here. And for a long time, they were the only one in the country doing it. There's a couple other brands that picked up on it and use it, but they were the originators of that glass. So Tatsu at the Craig Alkian, they buy every single release that Jack does. No matter what, they're always putting it on the shelf. And they've had some phenomenal stuff here. But the next on the list, the Uncharted whiskey company come together. Everything they do, they name after a rock and roll song. So that's where the names come from. It's almost always rock and roll songs. They've had a couple others, but come together. This was an interesting story. And now you have Lady of the Glen on yourself.
Yes.
So Gregor is the owner of that. He also has a production line, and Jack and Donna used Gregor's production line to bottle some of their releases in the past. This release was bottled by the owner of Lady of the Glen. Come together as two casks, two different maturations brought together. So it was first ex bourbon and then first Oloroso, and they took two casks and batted them together. And that was a giant mistake. That is not what Jack asked for. They were supposed to be bottled as two different releases. But when they tasted it, they're like, okay, I like this. Let's test this out. And so this comes from the Speyside Distillery. It's not just this distillery in Speyside. It's the Speyside Distillery. And it was two casks, a vatted release of ex bourbon and Oloroso. And of everything we have in front of us now, I think this is the easiest, the gentlest Scotch. So Holly, I can't wait to see your reaction to this. I wouldn't think there's Oloroso impact on this, but there was.
It's 50% ABV too, so lower ABV than what we've been having. So we're kind of going down a little bit here.
Yeah, I find this to be very balanced overall.
So it
It's
was
like sugar ice cream.
equal
And
parts, right? Since they're both hogsheads.
Yeah, yeah. I I wouldn't think this when it comes to putting two casts together, but I do think the ex bourbon, to me, it dominates the flavor more. I don't pick up much impact from the Oloroso. I don't know about you guys. I get a lot of oak and vanilla out of this, which I tend to get from ex bourbon casks. But it's just such a very smooth dram, 50% ABV. I think it drinks exactly at 50% ABV, where the 60% Breval that drank lower. Some people thought the Teaninich drank higher. The Glen Elgin I thought was spot on. This one is, I don't want to add water to this when I drink this. I don't know. What do you guys think?
it's orange sherbet.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, I haven't even sipped it yet. I've just been nosing it.
Definitely a long finish, that's for sure, for a 50% ABV. My first sip of this, which was kind of interesting, I think the Oloroso cask kind of um, came forward to me um, in a lightly smoky way. not peated, but in that there's sometimes with Oloroso casks, you can kind of get this. I'm not going to say a barbecue note, but there's definitely a little bit of kind of a smoky meat note to it. And I think that's where I, versus the rich red fruit, dark red fruit notes, it was more of the kind of whiff of the oak, this, and again, no peat or anything like that. It's more of a kind of a barbecue note. And we have some people that obviously buy whiskey in our shop that don't understand peat or where the smoke comes from or anything like that, and they have had sometimes sherry cask products and they think it's peated, and I think it's a little bit of that kind of coming through to me, but obviously there's no peat on this at all. But it's kind of fun. I didn't get that on the second sip, I just got it on the first sip, so maybe it was my palate just getting adjusted to this flavor profile as well, which was kind of fun.
It's considerably different than the first three, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, earthy soot note. There you go. Wisps.
Speyside Distillery, what's their deal again? Because I get them and Spey Distillery confused.
They're exceptionally small.
Okay.
And it's a very, very old building. I don't know that you can tour that one. I'll look that up real quick.
They were founded in 1990, so very young. 600,000.
One Shalom one too. You like have to write to them and see if you can walk around. Yeah, this is our second independent bottler release from them.
Really? They're
Yeah.
very small. They're very small. They have one spirit and one wash still. That's it. And
Yeah.
It's a very, very small distillery.
So
I know their distillery releases are not, as far as I'm aware, not available in the US.
Holly, it says here it currently produces the Spey single malt.
Oh, so maybe that's why I get confused because it's from the same place. They're the tall bottles, right? Those tall, slender bottles. Okay. It's the same place.
Yeah, it's just a different name.
Okay. Is that in the US, Charles, the distillery release?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's very rare to hear about this distillery, especially when it's in the thick of Glenlivet, Glenfiddich, all the big distilleries in that region. You don't think of a small boutique distillery living amongst them.
Yeah. Yeah, again, this is supposed to be an experiment. Two releases side by side to show what is ex-bourbon and what is first fill Oloroso finish having an impact on the same distillate. But they've added it, and I think it's a great release. Great release. You only have one bottle left, huh?
With these Uncharted, those are ones that you just brought in because of the brand, the IB. You didn't ask these, or
yeah, I know Jack personally. We've been talking for a couple years. I actually, when he first started, he was doing some YouTube videos and he released something called Rumors, and he had Rumors too. It was $500, but it was a 30-year-old Bowmore, and he couldn't put Bowmore on the label because of that was just an agreement for the cast. So when I started drinking the Uncharted releases, I was like, these are always good, always great, always different. And I like the kind of ethos off the beaten path distilleries, finding releases and putting out products that you're just not going to find anywhere else. And then upon staying at the Carragh Inn up in Speyside and seeing every release they've ever had on the walls there, that was really cool. So built a relationship with Jack. I trust and believe in everything he does. I tasted one of his, and then he does three at a time, and I take everything that I can get from him.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I think you guys would be very interested in the next upcoming release that they have. the Chain Pier Distillery. So whoever's on, look up Chain Pier Distillery. They had 38 casks only ever produced, and Jack got 2 of them.
What's it called? Chain what?
Chain Pier. Yeah. It operated for 1 month. That's it. And
In
it shut down.
Scotland or in England?
In Scotland. In Scotland. It was in Edinburgh.
Chain Pier.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. Wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
we put this on the website and
oh.
there
So,
were online orders
so
because Speyside so rare.
Holly,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chain Pier was a test facility for Bonington. We were just
Oh,
talking about Bonington yesterday or the day before, which is in Leith. Um,
Yeah.
oh, cool. Well, now we're on the hunt.
Chain Pier was truly Edinburgh's first single malt since 1925. Um,
Yeah. 38 casks.
39, it says here 39 casts before closing.
Okay.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Primarily a test facility for Carragh whiskey, which you see.
Yeah, Krabby and Bonnie.
Yeah.
That's
No, this is pretty good. I like this come together.
Yeah, we brought a third of the release over. They had about 600 bottles, and I brought I think 240 over, 242 I brought over, and it sold very quickly.
And there's none left except one bottle here.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
All right, so we'll move on to the next one. This is the Thunderstruck.
Yeah, we're moving back up, and this is the youngest, perhaps one of the most intense, but at cast strength at 59.1%.
Nice color.
This was a sherry butt overall, so it's darker than any other release that we have. Here, it's the youngest, and it was finished. It wasn't matured in Oloroso. It was finished for 3 years in an Oloroso cask, and this is what they consider a just giant sherry bomb. Jack's words were unashamed sherry bomb, actually.
The Thrusk.
It took a good 2 to 3 weeks of Donna, Jack's partner, teaching me how to say Auchroisk. Took a long time to learn how to say that.
59.1% ABV.
Yeah.
So we're jumping back up.
And this was the sherry butt. So this is the largest cask of everything here.
It says 2X Oloroso sherry hogsheads.
I'm completely wrong. What am I thinking then? I thought this was a butt. Maybe that's why it's 600 bottles that came from this.
Right, 2 hogsheads. Yep.
okay, so it's just Oloroso.
It was 4 years ex-bourbon, 3-year finish in Oloroso, first fill.
Okay. All right. So the Ferg and Harris and the Braeval, the first and the last are the only 2 in Pedro Jimenez.
That's right.
Sherry, and then the Teaninich and the Auchroisk are the Oloroso. Okay. So if you want to compare.
And the Ferg Harris Speyside versus the Braeval, that's maturation versus a finish.
Right.
Ooh, this one's fun.
To me, this is the classic sherry bomb.
Yep.
Oloroso impact.
But it's not that kind of traditional like Glen or Abelauer sherry bomb. It's a very different kind of distillate beneath it.
Yeah, this is this distillery predominantly blends as well. I've not seen a distillery release from these guys. Have you?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a Diageo brand.
Yeah, it's typically compared to Blair Athol being
Mm.
a nutty, heavier style distillate for Diageo, which I could see that. You know, it has some fruit, but it's not a fruit bomb. It's not your classic Speyside style.
There
Yeah,
must have
they're
been.
1972, so not again in that 1970s era of building big blending single malt producers. They do over 3 million liters a year, so it's definitely a workhorse distillery, for sure. Um, the
I
only
mean, you don't
the only
name it that to become a big brand because no one can, no one can. I guess Lafroig's the same, but yeah.
Yeah, the only time you'll see this released with the distillery was the
Yeah,
Flora and Fauna release, Diageo, and then they did call it the Singleton of Auchroisk for a period of time as well.
yeah. The music, the song that they name the release after definitely helps. I love how they come up with these things.
You start singing it in your head while you're drinking it.
They came over, Jack and Donna, the owners of Uncharted, for Whiskey Fest Chicago and New York City, and they had this bottle. Everyone loved it, and they took pictures of it all over Chicago, all over New York City.
They should just do an Uncharted tasting with each soundtrack. Each
Uh,
No talking.
no talking. Yeah, just
You get as long as the song is to drink the whiskey.
oh
yeah.
man,
You have 3 minutes for each whiskey.
it's not a bad idea. We're gonna have to do that.
That'd be really fun.
And you have to dance. I'm just kidding. Or sing.
Man,
Till it wasn't.
yeah, Auchroisk is it's almost like a staple in a indie bottler's release schedule over the past couple of years. I've seen it from almost every indie bottler. I've seen Auchroisk, except for the big guys. I haven't seen it from Gordon MacPhail or Signatory, but infrequent flyers, Alistair Walker, he's always spot on with his stuff. I'm really curious. Compared to the Braeval, these are like the two sherry bombs, but we get to see PX versus Oloroso. What did you guys think?
I mean, everybody loved that Breeball, so I'm guessing people are headed that direction. I actually like this one, I think myself, but um, what do you
I
guys
find it sweeter on the finish. There's a little bit more of intertwining of sweetness compared to the Braeval. The Braeval was like dense, heavy for me.
Yeah,
Um, where there's these kind of glimmers of sweet plums and cherries kind of mixed in with that tar. But then you also get tar, you know, tobacco, that chocolate, all of that's still there, but it's got a little bit more sweetness for me. People
yeah,
are
I'm
still
drinking.
talking about Braeval in the chat. It's still, usually the first whiskey gets left out.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
long.
So I was really Charles. I thought there was a method to the madness here in the order that we went with, and I love what we're doing here. It's like we started really intense, came down a little bit, and we're building back up in flavor intensity.
as long as there's no smoke getting in the way, or a little bit of ABV difference isn't gonna kill it.
Yeah,
Um, I do like how we are mixing it up though. That's kind of fun, kind of
yeah,
bouncing around. Because if you did them side by side, sometimes you lose something with that too. So it is kind of nice to have them separate like that. I blame this on Holly. She just gave me a list of what we were tasting, and I just made the order off of that list. I didn't. I thought she had thought it through, so it is what it is.
You
So
just took the list?
yeah, I thought that
Oh,
was
I
the
know, I
order.
didn't. I did-
That's funny.
You
That's
know,
funny.
we sit next to each other, but sometimes the communication is not not
How is
always.
it?
Oh,
Okay,
that's
Holly,
funny.
you the anti-sherry cask lover. Where do we stand from your perspective?
I'm not anti-sherry
Okay.
by any
Yeah, you
means.
are.
I
Yes, she is.
I respect sherry. I appreciate it, but it's not what I'm drinking at home in private. That's not what I'm drinking. Um, I really the Braeval was great, but this Auchroisk I find really interesting.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm liking Auchroisk. The Glen Elgin is still my, but that's probably because it's the most delicate finish. I would say probably that and the Teaninich that we've had. Well, the Speyside too, but um, the Glen Elgin has been a standout for me. But Braeval is winning in the chat, so
Yeah.
Whispering Waters.
I'm-
I came in late, so I'm drinking the Braeval now next to the Thunderstruck. Am I getting like a funk in the Braeval? Like a little more sulfury than the Thunderstruck? Are there worm tubs involved?
No, but sometimes in sherry, if your palate's sensitive to it, no matter what style of sherry, you tend to find it in Oloroso a little bit more, but it doesn't matter. You can sometimes get that in sherry casks.
Yeah, I'm not saying that in a bad way.
Yeah.
Just more pronounced than the Thunderstruck, which is what I'm preferring.
You have a very sensitive, delicate palate, Chad.
That's me. Soft hands.
I think he still has some Hakushu on his breath. So
Is everyone here Saratoga Springs local or
no,
native?
no, we actually have. I mean, we have some in Saratoga, but we have Massachusetts here tonight. We have Maryland with us tonight.
Wow.
Some other parts of New York. We have Florida with us tonight. So
Very
um,
cool.
yeah, kind of all over the place.
Austin, Queensbury. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So there was something oh yeah, Holly wanted to call our shop Second Fill Spirits. So if that says anything, about her preferences, that's all
We're gonna franchise the shop, and it's gonna be second fill, third fill, fourth fill, and then knackered.
I love that.
I'll
That's
take the
that's a great
Virgin.
idea.
Yeah, the knackered store is going to sell so much. It's going to be crazy. Yeah.
I'll run that shop.
I think that's
You got to put that
that's the
next to a,
VIP club, isn't it, Charles?
Yeah, that's the VIP.
All partial bottles.
you got to put that next to a military base. It'll be a hot spot.
Good night, everybody.
The last one will be called New Make. Just all right. So we're going to move on to our last one here. This is from Ferg and Harris.
Yeah.
It's
So
a different bottle here, different IB. So we don't really know them. What's the deal with Ferg and Harris?
the Ferg and Harris is the brand that comes from Young Spirits. Young Spirits is a well-known entity in Scotland for indie bottlers and big brands. They're a production company where they store and they bottle spirits. If you think about not the Macallan 82 year, but a very expensive, high-end, big brand release that is a single cast or a couple casts that come together, like Balvini's 50 year or a Dalmore 60 or something like that. They go to Young Spirits because they're so intricate, they're so detailed in everything they do for special releases. And Young Spirits became a like an entity for these super high-end releases. So much so they decided to release their own brand. And that's where they created Ferg and Harris. And it's the names of the two founders of Young Spirits, Alex Ferguson and then John Harris. And then the Birds, apparently that's a soccer team and I'm not a sports fan. I don't know soccer or football, but the birds come from their favorite soccer team. So Ferg and Harris represents what they find to be their favorite scotches, and they're trying to push boundaries. So every release they do, from a single cast perspective, is always an experiment. They were one of the first to start experimenting with virgin oak. But when it comes to what we're drinking here, this is actually the only small batch release that I have in my portfolio, the only small batch release that we have in front of us. When I say small batch, it was 5,000 bottles. And so they looked to try to find a bulk supply that is a Speyside. They didn't want to put the distillery name on it. They wanted this to represent their brand. And when you think of batch releases, small batch or big batch, something that you can repeat, you tend not to get cast strength. And so they're a small batch release. Holly and did a little bit of homework to find out what distillery it actually is. And we're almost certain it's actually from Altmore Distillery. But they found some excellent liquid that they could get in bulk that they could repeat in small batch releases. And this first release is 55.7%. And they finished it in a first fill PX cask. I guarantee it was very wet. It's very dark. It's very rich. It's definitely that PX impact. But when you compare it to the first drink we had from Braeval, which is maturation in PX cask versus a finish, this almost has more sherry impact, I think, on the nose and the initial palate.
So they chose not to use the distillery name because usually when you see a region, like you see Orkney or you see they maybe didn't get um get the approval to use the distillery name, or so they made that choice. It wasn't because they weren't allowed to say the distillery.
As far as I know, they made this to represent who they are with kind of changing the game and being a premium product and everything that they do. The label is excellent. It's super high-end paper. The bottle, it's meant to represent a still with the bulb here. And they have their single cast releases, but they wanted something that they could repeat pretty accurately. And they chose this is Ferg and Harris. This is their standard release. So when you go to it, you know what you're getting as a dependable product overall.
So I know we're not sure where this came from, but when we were chatting yesterday,
Yeah.
I had someone who bought the bottle say, "Where's it from?" People always want to know where it's from. And I said, "Let me find out." So I was messaging with Jay, and he said it was Bacardi owned, which Jay, I think you know, but I worked for the brands at Bacardi. So I was like,
Okay.
okay, if it says Speyside, there's only two. So
That's
it's
right.
Altmore or Carragh.
It is not Carragh. No
Yeah,
way.
and Chad,
No
you know
way.
Carragh pretty well, because he's trying to figure it out too. But Altmore is a very, very coveted single malt. They've expanded capacity recently, but it wouldn't affect a 12-year-old like this. But it's the way it was explained to me by Stephanie McLeod, the blender. So Altmore and all of Bacardi's brands go into Dewar's, but it's
Yeah.
one of the most coveted when it comes to trading. So most single malts are an even swap, but Altmore is um, very valuable to blends. So it's you see in independent bottlers, but it's not that common. The distillery releases are not they're few and far between. I mean, they're available, but so it's really cool to see Altmore get the time of day because it's always
Yeah.
a little under the radar. But she always called it the Italian bakery distillery. So it's that custard, citrus custard, cannoli, confection style whiskey. So I don't know if anyone, I mean, now we just said it, so you're all going to taste it. But I mean, I guess it might not be Altmore, but maybe some people taste some of that. I'm not sure.
Yeah. And Holly, correct me if I'm wrong, but what we normally see out of that distillery is Ardmore, a Peter release. I tend not to see Altmore as just a standard bottle or labeled. It's only indie bottles that I found in America and it's very few and far between. So I've seen Ardmore all over the place, not Altmore. Is is that true or?
Altmore actually, it's kind of sad because I helped relaunch the brands in the US, and then they pulled Altmore back a little bit out of the US after we relaunched them, but because it was so limited. But it used to only be matured except for the predominantly except for the 25. It was all ex-bourbon matured. So they did have distillery releases, but they were quite expensive and not readily available. And then they just relaunched Altmore as a distillery bottling, all in different sherry finishes, which is kind of timely for the IB world. But it's still mostly in travel retail. It's still not it's probably available in the US, but not no one's really purchasing that because their big brand is Aberfeldy.
Yeah.
So it's still really rare to find Altmore anywhere.
Yeah, I just don't see it in the US.
Mm.
But from a PX cast perspective, now tasted a finish. This was 6 months finish versus full maturation. I find this to have more sherry flavor or sherry impact, I think, from the finish aspect. It's probably a very wet cask versus maturation on the Braeval. So very, very dessert-like.
This is such a steal too. I'm not just saying this, but I thought it was because they didn't disclose the distillery. Sometimes you get a better price when they don't disclose it, but for cask strength, and this is a really lovely whiskey, 89.99. I mean, that's not, I know it's not a single cask too, so that's also playing into the price, but it's for anyone that likes heavy sherry, because we've sold quite a few bottles of this already too.
Very cool. Yeah.
Oh, you said that it's nice to see Altmore getting some love. Well, they're not really getting any love with this. I mean,
No, they're not.
It's nice
Well,
to know.
love with this group.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate that their name's not on it, but that would also raise the price $30, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting how that impacts the business overall and what big brands or big companies are willing to do. You want to use the distillery name or not? And it
had
does
to
impact.
be a bunch of PX casks if they're finishing for 5,000 bottles. So it was
all first fill.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's 1,000 pounds for a first fill PX or Oloroso cask. So
I mean, we're talking
not cheap.
A lot of them. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. No, it's a beautiful bottle. It's really tasty. This would be, I mean, yeah, it's higher proof, but I could also see this one being a good kind of entry bottling for somebody who's new to IBs that wants, a little bit higher proof, but maybe not just a single cask and just tapping their toe in the water a little bit. It's got that nice balance of that PX. It does come forward. I mean, the Braeval to me though was richer. It was like denser because of that full maturation. But I do like this finish aspect of it a little bit better. For personally, that's just again my palate. But this is kind of the PX that I enjoy on the finish. Chad, Glen Elgin, there he is.
It's a phenomenal dram. To me, this is a French dessert that I'm enjoying.
I'm just happy now I know how to pronounce it. Carragh. I mean, I was butchering it. So
Carragh. I was pronouncing the GH too.
I met them at the festival in Leith too. I went by and they had that sample for me to bring back. They were very nice. I remember they were so excited to meet somebody from First Fill. I was like, who are these people? I don't even know who you are.
You guys are legends over there.
No, legends. Yeah. Oh my God. That's so funny.
Yeah. The guy, Uncharted, Jack and Donna, when I started talking to them, they're like, "Do you know First Fill Spirits?" I'm like, I do not, but let me change that. So
That's
that
cool.
was almost 2 years ago, too.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, we met them in person at the festival in the Speyside about a year ago. Um, right? That was the first time in person we met them. Weren't they
Yeah.
there? Yeah.
So Jay, we've been talking with Scott in Carragh about splitting a single cask, like a collaboration project with them. So if you could help us import that,
I got you. I would
that'd
be
be
happy to
great.
do that.
Okay, great. Because I didn't want to have to do it.
Yeah,
So,
that's where I come in. That's my job. I'm doing it for a couple of different whiskey clubs, and there's a couple single cask options. There's uh, an Air Force group that bought a 40-year-old cask of Invergedon, and they're going to bottle that in January. And then there's a 50-year-old cask that there's some other military guys considering buying right now as well.
A
So
single grain as well, or
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
nice.
yeah. 50-year-old single malt. We're talking
Yeah,
$250,000
yeah,
there.
yeah, no, of course. Yeah. Well, that
But
was
yeah,
the cask of Cregality we're bringing in. Is a 52-year, Holly? Is that right? That's the one. No, just kidding.
that's 51.
there we go. There we go. I'm in.
All right. Well, we're gonna wrap up.
You see the top ones, though?
Yeah,
It's
let's do a quick top count. Let's go through the people here online, and I'll
the
just
chat's interesting.
I'll just name your name and then maybe just chime in. So, David and Diane, what were your top two?
So, David, Diane,
I like that
the
one.
Braeval and the
Glen Elgin.
The Glen Elgin. All right.
yeah,
Yeah.
Carragh.
Sure. All right.
Sorry.
Awesome. All right, Charles, what about you? Braeval and Come Together? I was just looking here in the chat room.
Yeah, that was it for me.
All right, sounds good. Merrick, what do you think?
Braeval and Thunderstruck.
Nice. There we go. BJ,
I had Thunderstruck and Glen Elgin.
look at the thrust coming through here. Nice. Vinny, you had the
Braeval and number two is the Teaninich.
Teaninich. There we go. And Dave, Tobias?
The Auchroisk and Teaninich.
You have a cold there, David?
I'm trying to pronounce
Sorry,
it.
no, I was just giving you a hard time. Holly, what do you think?
Oh, the Glen Elgin
All right.
and maybe the Teaninich.
All right. How about you, Jim?
Yeah, I got the Glen Elgin and then Ferg and Harris.
Nice.
Oh.
There you go. And Will?
The Braeval and then the Ferg and Harris.
All right. Sounds good. I don't know if any of these other Chad, you were on there. You wrote it, didn't you? I think you wrote it.
Yeah, Glen Elgin and Auchroisk.
And I don't think Nick, I don't know if he's on or Warren. They might be just Nick's here.
I'm here. I like the Braeval and the Thunderstruck.
Okay. I can see you liking that Thunderstruck. Probably playing it in the background too. All good.
I very much like the Ferg and Harris, and not so much the Thunderstruck. Actually, that one did not strike for me, but the Braeval was very good.
Awesome. All right, Warren. Thanks for chiming in. For me personally, I'm going to go a little off the board here. I actually really like the Teaninich. I don't know. That was just I like that bubbly, effervescent side of it for me. And then number two, probably the Auchroisk. I really kind of dug that one. I'm not a crazy sherry bomb person, but that one kind of hit the right notes. So that was good. But all right, so I want to just thank Jay before we end this. This was great. We're really excited to work with you, and we really look forward to continuing to bring in some fun new expressions from Scotland. And these have all been great. This was a really fun tasting. Really nice to have like kind of a similar genre in a way of, casks that were all on that sherry-ish port kind of railroad. So we didn't go too crazy off the path with this one, which was kind of fun as well. But really solid, really, really fun. And we're excited to know you. So
yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much, everybody.
We'll have to have you back on because what'd you say, 10 or 16 new brands that you're talking to?
12 new brands. 12 new brands. And I have 14 new single cask options coming in next month.
Wow.
We'll finalize that.
And I know I have some samples that Charles and I will be tasting. So, and I think, Chad, there's a Carragh in there.
Invite me over.
Two Carragh.
Two Carragh. So, yeah. So we'll have to have Jay back on. Maybe this will be a quarterly class that we do.
I'm in.
That could be great. Yeah, no, for us, it's great. So, all right, guys, we're going to sign off. It's 8:30. So hope you all had a good time tonight. And thank you, Jay, one last time for this, and look forward to the next. And we'll see everybody soon. So
cheers.
Night.
All right. Have a good night, everyone. Cheers.
Cheers. Good night.